A single rental car depreciates by roughly $3,000 to $6,000 a year, whether it gets rented every single day or sits in the lot untouched. That's the brutal math behind every rental car company. You're not really renting out cars, you're racing against a depreciation clock on an entire fleet of them. And every day a car sits empty is a day you're losing money on an asset that's quietly losing value anyway. Most people think car rental is a straightforward business. Buy some cars, rent them out by the day, collect the money. It's actually a fleet management and asset timing business disguised as a simple rental counter, where the real skill isn't renting cars, it's buying and selling them at exactly the right moment. Understanding exactly how that works separates the operators who turn a genuine profit from the ones who end up holding a depreciating fleet nobody wants to rent. So let's actually open the books on this one.
The reality check. From the outside, a car rental company looks simple. A lot full of cars, a counter, some paperwork, a customer drives off, a customer brings it back, you collect a daily rate. It looks like one of the more approachable small business models out there. What's actually happening is closer to running a leasing company that also happens to handle daily logistics. Every single car in your fleet is a depreciating asset the moment you buy it. Insurance costs scale with the size and value of your entire fleet rather than any single vehicle. And utilization, the percentage of days a car actually gets rented versus sitting idle, determines almost everything about whether the business is profitable at all. Add in the reality that damage, wear, and mileage accumulate regardless of who's driving, and that you eventually have to sell every car in your fleet before it becomes a liability rather than an asset, and you start to see why this business runs on entirely different math than most people assume. That's exactly why successful operators treat fleet management as the actual core skill of this business, not customer service or location. The rental counter is just where the transaction happens. The real profit or loss gets determined by decisions made months earlier when a car was bought and months later when it eventually gets sold. But here's what the numbers actually look like.
Chapter 1. Startup Costs. Getting into car rental requires serious upfront capital, and the fleet itself is by far the biggest piece. A modest starting fleet of 20 to 30 economy and mid-size vehicles, bought new or lightly used, typically runs $500,000 to $900,000, depending on vehicle mix, with a more substantial fleet of 50-plus vehicles pushing well past $1.5 million. Many operators don't pay for the entire fleet in cash, instead using fleet financing arrangements or manufacturer repurchase programs, where a car maker agrees in advance to buy vehicles back at a set price after a set period, which reduces the operator's exposure to unpredictable resale value swings, but typically comes with financing costs of its own. Beyond the vehicles, a rental company needs commercial auto insurance covering an entire fleet, which runs meaningfully higher than personal auto insurance, given the frequency of different drivers and higher claims exposure, along with a physical lot or small office space for pickup and drop-off, typically costing $3,000 to $10,000 a month in rent, depending on location and proximity to airports or city centers. Licensing requirements vary by U.S. state, Canadian province, or UK local authority, but commonly include a business license, a specific rental vehicle permit, and registration with state-level consumer protection agencies, given how rental agreements are legally structured. Technology costs round out the startup picture. Reservation and fleet management software to track vehicle location, maintenance schedules, and booking calendars typically runs a few hundred to a few $1,000s a month, depending on fleet size and features. Here's what most people miss. The fleet purchase decision itself is the single biggest driver of long-term profitability, since buying vehicles with strong resale value and manufacturer buyback programs can dramatically reduce depreciation risk compared to buying cars that lose value fast or have no guaranteed resale path, which is exactly why experienced operators spend as much time studying resale data as they do studying rental demand.
Chapter 2. Revenue Streams. A car rental company doesn't make its money purely off the daily rental rate. It stacks several revenue lines, and the smart operators lean hard into the highest margin ones. Daily rental rates are the obvious foundation, and pricing varies enormously by vehicle class and location. An economy car might rent for $35 to $60 a day, while an SUV or luxury vehicle can command $80 to $200+ a day, with pricing shifting significantly based on season, local events, and airport proximity. Insurance and protection product add-ons are one of the highest margin categories in the entire business. Collision damage waivers, supplemental liability coverage, and roadside assistance packages can add $15 to $40 a day per rental. And because these products carry minimal direct cost to the operator beyond potential claims, they contribute disproportionately to overall profit compared to the base rental rate itself. Additional fees round out the picture. Fuel service charges when a car isn't returned full, additional driver fees, young driver surcharges, GPS and child seat rentals, and airport concession fees that operators pay to airports but often partially pass through to customers. Fleet resale is a genuinely significant revenue line too, not just a cost recovery mechanism. Selling vehicles at the right point in their depreciation curve, often through wholesale auctions or direct-to-consumer sales, can meaningfully offset the original purchase cost and sometimes generate real profit on well-chosen vehicles. Here's the number that surprises most people. Because protection products and add-on fees carry such strong margins, two rentals at the exact same daily rate can generate meaningfully different profit depending purely on how many add-ons the customer purchased at the counter, which is exactly why counter staff training on add-on sales matters as much as the base pricing strategy.
Chapter 3. Operating costs. Now to what actually eats into that revenue. And running a rental fleet carries costs that scale directly with how many vehicles you own, whether they're being rented or not. Fleet depreciation is the largest and most unavoidable cost category. A typical rental vehicle loses a meaningful chunk of its value in the first year or two of ownership. And because depreciation happens on a calendar basis regardless of utilization, an idle car sitting in the lot is losing value at essentially the same rate as one being rented daily, which is exactly why utilization matters so enormously to overall profitability. Maintenance and repair costs add up quickly across a fleet running high mileage from frequent, varied drivers. Oil changes, tire replacement, and general wear happen faster than on a personally owned vehicle. And accident repairs, even minor ones, are a routine and expected cost of doing business at scale. Insurance is a substantial ongoing cost too, scaling with fleet size and vehicle value. And commercial rental insurance rates reflect the genuinely higher claims frequency that comes with renting to a constantly rotating pool of drivers. Staffing for counter service, vehicle cleaning and prep between rentals, and lot management adds a real labor cost. And financing costs, whether interest on a fleet loan or the built-in cost of a manufacturer buyback arrangement, represent another significant ongoing expense that scales directly with fleet size. Here's the retention hook worth remembering. Because so much of this cost structure is tied to owning the fleet rather than renting it out, a car sitting idle for a week doesn't just cost you the lost rental revenue. It costs you the same depreciation and financing expense as a car that rented every single day that week, which is exactly why fleet utilization is the single number rental operators watch more closely than almost any other.
Chapter 4. Profit margins and real numbers. So what's actually left over? Industry data commonly cited by car rental trade groups puts well-run operations in the 10% to 15% net profit margin range on total revenue, which requires genuinely disciplined fleet management, given how much of the cost structure is fixed, regardless of utilization. Let's run a real example. Take a fleet of 30 vehicles renting at an average daily rate of $55, running at a realistic 70% utilization rate across the year. That's 30 cars times 365 days times 70% utilization times $55 a day, which comes to roughly $421,575 in annual rental revenue. Layer in protection products and add-on fees averaging $12 per rental day across those same rented days, adding another roughly $92,000 for total annual revenue of approximately $513,575. Depreciation, maintenance, insurance, staffing, and financing combined typically consume 85% to 90% of total revenue for a fleet this size. So at 88%, that's roughly $452,000 in total costs.
Subtracting those costs from revenue leaves approximately $61,500 in annual net profit, a margin just above 12%, squarely within that commonly cited industry range. Here's what separates a mediocre year from a genuinely strong one. Utilization matters more than daily rate. Push that same fleet from 70% utilization to 80% through better booking management and seasonal pricing, while holding costs roughly flat since the fleet size hasn't changed, and annual rental revenue climbs to about $481,800, pushing total revenue, including add-ons, past $586,900. And because most of the cost base doesn't move with those extra rental days, net profit can climb meaningfully higher than a simple proportional increase would suggest.
Chapter 5: Risks and what makes someone succeed or fail. Now, the honest part. This business has real pressure points, and they're worth naming clearly. Residual value risk is the single biggest threat. If used car prices soften by the time you're ready to sell off aging fleet vehicles, the resale value you were counting on to offset your original purchase cost can come in well below projections, which directly hits profitability on cars you've already been depreciating for a year or two. Utilization risk is a constant, quieter drain, too. A seasonal downturn, a local economic slowdown, or increased competition can drop utilization rates meaningfully. And because so much of the cost structure is fixed, regardless of how many cars actually rent out, even a modest utilization drop can flip a profitable fleet into a loss-making one. Accident and liability exposure is a real ongoing risk too, since renting to a constantly rotating pool of drivers, including inexperienced or higher risk renters, means claims and damage repair costs are simply part of doing business at scale in a way that doesn't exist for most other asset-based businesses. But here's what actually separates operators who thrive from ones who struggle: disciplined fleet cycling and utilization management. The most successful operators actively track resale data and cycle vehicles out of the fleet at the optimal point in their depreciation curve rather than holding on to cars too long. And they use dynamic pricing and strong add-on sales training to maximize both utilization and per rental profit simultaneously. The operators who struggle usually made one of two mistakes. They held onto vehicles too long, chasing a few extra rental days, and got caught by declining resale values. Or they underestimated how directly fixed costs like depreciation and financing eat into profit during a slow utilization stretch. This is a business built for people who think like asset managers as much as they think like customer service operators, not people looking for a simple rent and collect model. Everything here is general business education, not financial, legal, or investment advice. If you're seriously exploring car rental ownership, you'd want to research state and local licensing requirements, review fleet financing and manufacturer buyback options carefully, and speak with an accountant experienced in asset-heavy, fleet-based businesses before committing any capital. What's clear from the numbers is that a car rental company isn't really a simple rental business. It's a fleet timing and asset management operation where the real skill is buying and selling vehicles at the right moment. And the winners are the ones who treat utilization and resale value as seriously as they treat the customer at the counter. So here's my question for you. Would you rather own a fleet-based business like car rental with real depreciation risk, or a business with fewer physical assets but less pricing power? Tell me which you'd choose and why in the comments.